All right, let's cue the video. Let's get started. All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. I am the host of today's Elevator Pitch Showdown. Ash Singh, I'm the one of the professors of the Hyper Accelerator program. Great to have everyone here today. We are going to have 6 founders today pitching, which is really exciting. The Elevator Pitch Showdown is an experience that is unique to us to help every founder within the Hyper Accelerator program to be able to pitch, get some feedback, and if they would like, I will pitch their idea back and allow them to listen to their company being pitched by somebody else. Our goal is for positive, constructive feedback in order for them to level up and obviously improve their chances of success when they're fundraising. So we're going to kick today's session off. Our first contestant is here today. Let's just make sure that we have everyone here today. Let's hear. We have we have Iris joining us today. Iris, good morning.
Morning.
How's it going today?
Doing well, thank you.
All right, so we are going to hear from Iris. And Iris, before we start, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right, so Atlanta, Georgia. We'll probably again have a chance to tour around the world. The way, Iris, this works is very simple. We're in an elevator, and you can notice my virtual background behind me. We'll pitch the, we have 1 minute, right? Christine is our trusty timekeeper. She will raise her hand when the 1 minute is up. Basically you have the opportunity to pitch your idea to me, and we'll give feedback, and we'll evolve your elevator pitch. Everyone that's joining us today in the crowd, what you can do is you can just feel free to, in the chat, give feedback. Let's try to make this the most impactful elevator pitch experience, elevator pitch training experience for Iris. All right. So Iris, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, let's rock and roll. I'm hitting the top of the elevator. Okay. Let's get started. All right.
All right.
All right.
So my company is it's called Daima, and we are an agency turned technology company. And we really began by helping companies create educational and social experiences that help them tap into new markets and diverse demographics. And what we learned in the process is that companies have a hard time figuring out how to do this on their own, right? Different people like different kinds of experiences, women versus Black people versus Latinos, et cetera. People of different cultures, they have different tastes. And so event design is really important when you're trying to expand your audience or your community. But what
Mm,
we also learned is that there's a lot of logistical challenges around coordinating the talent required to host these experiences. And so, the average event can require anywhere from 5 to 15 different contractors, including event planners, speakers, DJs, photographers, videographers, sometimes even performers, staging, lighting, etc. And so, our app, Assemble Now, really helps to solve these problems by helping companies first design the experiences, and then second, find and hire the talent to execute in any region, in any language. They would be able to execute these experiences for any demographic. And then the app can also analyze the results so that it can make better design recommendations in the future. And our goal is ultimately to help companies be able to expand their community, their audience into different locations, regions, languages, et cetera, and save time and money in the process as they scale their communities globally.
interesting. Excellent. Thank you for that. Iris, and tell me, what are you looking for, right? What do you need?
Yeah, I'm looking to raise 300,000
Okay,
at a 4 million valuation in a pre-seed round.
got it. $4 million. All right. Excellent. All right. So let's get some feedback for Iris. And let's get the chat moving on this. So Iris, the name of the product is what again? Just give me the name of the product.
Assemble now.
Assemble
That's
now.
the
That's
Mhm.
what I. It's kind of like it reminds me of like the Marvel movies when the Avengers assemble. So you're getting everyone together. What we're going to do is we're going to get the chat moving, and anyone that has feedback, and obviously later on this is going to be delivered on our podcast as well as live on some of our social media platforms. So I want to make sure that we cover the basis. But Iris, I want to talk a little bit about the platform itself, okay? Because it's very interesting to me now when I look at this, and again, part of this journey is how I was listening as an average investor. Okay, that's kind of the mindset that I'm putting myself in, and I'm going to do that on purpose in order for us to drive the best result for this session for you. Okay, so my question to you is that is your app focused primarily on live events? Is that kind of the secret sauce? Is that where you're focusing on?
Yeah, so we're focused on both live events, online events, and hybrid experiences, as well as extended experiences. So, incubators, for example, would be an extended experience.
So, but when you think about live events in person or online, they're still kind of live though, right? People kind of
Yeah.
tune in, and so it's kind of because I'm trying to just gather kind of the overarching element around what you're doing. And so it's the idea that anyone that's putting together I might have an existing brand, okay? And as a brand owner, I realize that events, whether it's online, offline, or in a hybrid form, is a good way to boost awareness and get access to a new clientele, right? And
Right.
what you're saying is that typically when we look at demographics and stuff like that, we'll throw on ads. But what you do is instead of that, you have these live or hybrid or online events where you can get like thousands of people together, and through that event there's a higher level of engagement, brand loyalty, and you're able to tap on a new community, right? And that community will have their own set of ambassadors, and you can kind of grow your brand accordingly. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the reason I bring it up is because when I look at your product, just from an investment perspective and a value perspective, for me, it's this idea that instead of just going online, because online you cannot actually target demographics like that, correct? You can't go online and say, hey, I only want to target Indian people, right? You can't do
Not
that, right? Is it?
Not necessarily, but the way that you design the experience will attract a specific type of audience, right?
Sure,
So
exactly,
I,
exactly. Like
yeah,
what I'm saying is that the reason why your event model works is that you can't it's difficult. You can target people that like a certain type of music, right? So I might like, Bollywood movies, and that
mm-hmm.
might indicate that I might be Indian, but you can't go and you can target people in the country of India. But you know what I mean? Like if you're trying to build a demographic of the Indian community, say in Atlanta, Georgia, right? It's very difficult to do. So I understand kind of where that problem point kind of comes in from. So tell me about, so you put these events together, and part of it is designing and finding who are the talent that would best attract the audience. Is that correct?
Absolutely,
Right?
yes.
So your system allows you to understand that, this is the best Chinese opera singer that's going to attract this Chinese audience, right? Or you know what I mean, and so on and so forth. So you have a way of understanding, and I don't want to use the word influencer because that's not always the case, but who is the artist that's going to attract that demographic? You've thought about that, and that system is proprietary to you guys?
I'm sorry, it cut out for a second. I didn't hear the last few
No problem.
seconds.
Well, my question was, is you have the intelligence to be able to identify the talent that's going to draw the largest audience, right? In a specific demographic. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Identify and coordinate as well, and then um, handle hiring and payments as well,
Sure.
which is another logistical process.
Got it. And so when I think about this, and obviously that's a headache. It's a headache that needs to get done. When you do all this, what's the net result though? Iris, what I was thinking while you were pitching, I'm like, okay, I got all these components, and I am, I'm an Instagram slash TikTok brand. Okay. That's driving all this stuff. And I'm having this live event on Instagram. Let's just pretend we're all Instagrammers right now because some of us are older and have other things to do. So if we're all on Instagram, um, what is the net result though? Right. Because for me, it comes back down to the value prop, and that is, I want to engage in this event because I need more, I want to drive more revenue. And so the
Mhm.
idea is that I introduce a new community to my brand. That brand, that community will have a certain group of early adopters and people that will eventually, buy my, subscribe to my bank, or buy a cell phone plan from me, or buy my shoes, or whatever the case is. Tell me about the net result, Iris, because that's kind of where my mind was.
Yeah, absolutely. So people host events and companies host events for different reasons, right? Everyone has different goals. So in some cases, the goals might be to drive product adoption, revenue. In some cases, it might be to find talent, right? That's a big use case. And in some cases, it might be some sort of social impact mission, right? Like Google, for example, is currently looking for diverse developers, and they're investing capital in recruiting Black and brown talent. So it really depends on what the company's goals are. Our vision is to be broad
Sure.
and to be able to identify what the goals are of the company, design the experience accordingly, and then through those through the results and analytics, we can make better recommendations moving forward the more data that we collect.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I agree with you that, and you're the expert in this, right? There's product adoption, recruiting, and then also social elements. But my assumption is that, and this is kind of where I usually like to play, Iris, from an investor standpoint. I want to come back to kind of the dollars and cents, right? You know what I mean? So of the three elements, it might be, unless you go to an impact investor, right? I think it's easier for us to focus on the first two, right? How do you leverage your platform to increase the velocity of product adoption within a certain community? Okay. Or find talent cheaper, faster, easier, right? From that community, right? And those are kind of the two elements that I think are going to be the most important, right?
Hmm.
Does that make sense, Iris?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm again, I'm, and I apologize because I'm coming back to the dollars and cents, because an investor is always thinking about money. Okay.
Hmm.
If I use your platform, obviously there's the first element of getting access to a community that I might not have been able to get access to myself, right? I want to get access to the Latino community in Atlanta, right? And obviously I'm not Latino. So I want to use your platform to make it happen. Tell me about the cost elements, because you do all these components. How much does it typically cost to do this if I were to do it on my own in terms of time and money? And how do you guys improve that on both those elements?
Yeah, so what we found is that companies either do one of two things. They hire internal team members who execute on these types of initiatives, but they're oftentimes limited,
Mhm.
right, in terms of what they can do because of their, personal cultural background.
Sure.
And so, the cost, we can reduce that cost of hiring someone internally, having to pay for benefits and insurance, et cetera, and replace that labor with more project by project, contract based labor.
Yeah.
The other thing that we can help them avoid is having to hire really expensive marketing and PR agencies that would do this work, but do it with a much higher cost.
Yeah.
Because this software and it's automated and it's smart, we can charge a relatively small monthly subscription fee that would be significantly lower than what they would be spending for internal hires or agencies.
Got it. How much cheaper? How much cheaper? Do you have a deal? Like I'm curious. Like I want to, like, for me, it's and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but it seems to me that this is an area like you have, Iris, when I think about what you're doing, there is a blue ocean opportunity here, right? No one is going about this the way you're looking at this process. So if no one else is doing, my hope is that it's at least 50% cheaper, 60% cheaper, and it's 50% faster. If I need to have an event launched in a month, right? You're the fastest and cheapest, but I want to know how much, because if it's only 10% cheaper, Iris, that's not interesting.
Hmm.
Right, man? And do you get what I'm saying? Like, thinking about this, I think is really powerful, because when you look at different demographics, the intelligence needs to be there as well, right? The beauty of what you're building is you start to build intelligence and you start to get into the more deeper nuances of a community, right? Usually it takes a brand years to kind of get the intelligence required to be able to work with certain communities, right? There's so many sensitivities, which I think is great. But Iris, I want this to be like 50% faster and 50% cheaper, Iris, right? Is that possible with your platform?
Yes, it absolutely is possible. I mean, in fact, I think that it can actually be even
Okay.
cheaper than that.
Okay. But you were hesitant, Iris. Do you know what I mean? Like, tell me why. Tell me where's the hesitation here? Because
I was,
you know what I mean? This should be jumping off the page in your
yeah,
pitch, right? You
I was
know?
hesitant because I haven't calculated the exact numbers.
Okay, that's
So
fair.
I,
That's fair.
I was hesitant,
I
but
appreciate
I can say that as an agency,
it. Yes.
right? In order for it to be profitable for us to do events, not only do we have to pay all of these people,
Yeah.
right, we hire, but we also have to bake in a significant margin as
For
well.
yourself.
In order to be
Yes. To make it
profitable.
all work, right? And we'll definitely make sure we cover that as part of the Hyper Accelerator program. Your gross margin analysis obviously has to do it in your pricing model. But I always kind of look at it in terms of the value of what you're creating, and as we start to look at this, right? And for those people that don't know this, right? Because Iris, not everyone is in the event space with your level of exposure. Tell me about the dynamics, right? Like if I wanted to increase my brand awareness to the Latino community in Atlanta, okay? and I have no Latinos working for me, and I don't know anything about Latinos, and I start running events, okay,
Yeah.
catering to this community. How much better is this in terms of building brand awareness and product adoption versus the typical online stuff that people do, right? Like hiring, somebody that looks Latino to do a couple of video commercials or Instagram reel ads or something online. Tell me how much better this is. Like, what the other thing that was going through my mind, Iris, is like, why is this the best way to engage? Okay, right. And again, I'm an investor. I live on Wall Street. I don't, my bank pays for my events, and I have tickets to, the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco, but I don't know this. So Iris, it's important at times to build a little bit of that education layer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of data out there around experiential marketing and the impact that it has on people, right? 70% of people are a lot more likely to become loyal customers after an experiential marketing event. And so
Menchie, are you getting a bit of a sound error right now? You don't hear anything? You don't hear anything?
No,
All
I
right.
can't hear her.
All right. Iris, we're going to ask you to repeat what you said, ma'am. Just repeat what you said.
okay.
Because I think this is really powerful,
Now?
but I think your audio kind of conked out. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, 70% of people become more consistent, loyal customers after an experiential marketing event. And so there's quite a bit of data around the power of building the ability to build brand loyalty through events and experiences.
Got it. Now, Iris, my last question. How does this connect to the metaverse?
That's
Yeah, I think we lost Iris again. Iris, one more time. We'll just grab your audio. We'll just double check your audio. Go ahead.
hello.
Hi, Iris. You're back. My question again is, how does this connect to the metaverse? Go ahead.
hmm Yeah, so the metaverse really refers to the world of people online, and there's a lot of folks that are exploring experiences online because of the how much more open it is, and the fact that you can bring people together who are in multiple locations. It's a lot easier to bring them together through online events and give them immersive experiences as well through like 3D digital.
Got it. Understood. Understood. Okay. So what we're going to do, I know there's a little bit of a connection challenge. So Iris, we're getting a little bit of a connection problem on your side, but that's totally okay. I think I got enough on the question around the metaverse. What I wanted to propose, Iris, would you like me to pitch this idea back to you? Would you like me to pitch the Assemble Now platform back to you? Is that something you'd like to hear? I'm happy to pitch the idea back if you'd like.
Yes, I would like that.
Okay, all right. So you're gonna introduce yourself, Iris. You get to be an Atlanta-based investor, and once you introduce yourself, I will attempt to pitch this idea back to you. Is that okay? And I'll try to keep it within within a minute. And I'll try to pitch it a little bit differently, covering some of the elements that we just spoke about, right? You're looking for $300,000 at a $4 million valuation, okay? Right? And I think I'm ready. I can try to pitch all these elements, and let's see where it goes, okay? Are you ready, Iris?
Hang on, Ash. Wait.
No problem.
I'm gonna promote her before you pitch.
No problem. We're having today. We're having a little bit of.
Hey y'all. Sorry, I logged in from my phone.
Oh, no problem, Iris.
Connection.
So we're going to pitch. Now you'll introduce yourself, and I will attempt to pitch Assemble now as a hybrid experiential marketing platform. Okay. But you have to kick it off. So Iris, this is fun because you get to be anyone you want to be. You could be you could be Serena Williams. You could be anyone you want to be, any rich person that you've ever aspired to be. And you could and I will attempt to pitch the idea back to you. All right. So I'll hand it over to you for your intro, and then I will go and pitch Assemble now. All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm Oprah Winfrey.
I was thinking, I was like, there's been a lot of Oprah Winfreys over the years, but that's okay. I don't know why Oprah is still in vogue. I was trying to change it to Serena Williams, but I guess like Oprah is still so aspirational. Okay, let's start. Okay, you can go ahead. Let's introduce you. And we'll get started. Go ahead.
I'm really curious to learn more about your company. I don't invest often, but I do invest. So you tell me more.
All right. Well, Oprah, it's obviously a real honor to meet you in person. My name is Ash Singh, and I'm part of the Assemble Now team. As you know, marketing and marketing to diverse audiences is becoming more and more of a challenge on the internet. A lot of communities now recognize the value of reaching out to drive product adoption and finding rich talent in diverse communities, the Black community, the Latino community, the Indian community, the Asian community. And what we've discovered actually is that internet alone does not solve this problem. And having worked in the event organization space over the last 20 years, we have come and built a next generation hybrid event platform. And what it allows is for anyone, any brand that's looking to find and integrate and get involved, they can actually launch an event targeted at any one of these diverse communities. We help them design it, find the talent, manage and fund the whole execution. And it allows them to create live experiences, hybrid experiences, online, offline experiences to help drive true engagement, interest in their brand. But more importantly, Oprah, for somebody like you, it helps them reach out to these audiences. And it's not just about selling something to them. It's about finding talent. It's about inspiring people. We are able to do all of this 50% cheaper and 50% faster than any other traditional event management group. And what we're looking to now to do is raise our first $300,000 at a $4 million valuation to truly impact the way brands reach out, engage, and educate diverse communities all across the United States. I'd like to chat to you a little bit more about how we're building this next generation platform and how our AI works over a coffee, and see if there's a way for you to participate and be a brand ambassador for what we're trying to do. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Okay. So that was my Oprah pitch. I've pitched Oprah virtually like this in the past, by the way, right? It's never the real Oprah. It's always somebody else that wants to be Oprah. But I've had the opportunity to do it in the back. But Iris, coming back to your pitch, did you see what I did? Did you see how I kind of,
Yeah, you dug more into like what a company would actually get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think you dived into it sooner, and you also then added in that cost savings factor as well.
Cost savings. And who is Oprah? Why would Oprah's got tons of money, right? It's always about knowing who your audience is, right? And so Oprah wants access, right? She wants to improve. And so I didn't bring it up enough, but the idea of reaching out to communities and getting them engaged, do you know what I mean? Like, and representing communities, right? That's something that she's probably more interested in than just another marketing company. And so I feel that's kind of what I wanted to push on. I didn't, because she probably doesn't care too much about your AI. If you had given me somebody else that was more of a technology person, I would have spun the pitch to go into how you match the algorithm to know that this artist is the most attractive draw and somebody that we have access to for the Latino community in Atlanta, right? That matching component, I think, is very critical to what you're doing. And I feel like the other component that I didn't bring out, which I could have, was the idea of how what you're building now is going to connect to the metaverse, right? Eventually, what you're going to do is going to start carrying on in this word hybrid, virtual, online, offline, right? Because you have to think about what your big picture is, right? More people are going to be spending time in these environments. And so I wanted to bring that in as well, right? But hopefully we've recorded it for you, Iris. You'll feel free to copy anything that you liked, anything that you found value in the pitch. And I want to thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you found value, Iris.
I did. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Let's continue on. I know that we are going to continue the elevator pitch showdown. We're going to hear from Rajiv, I think, is next. Rajiv is joining us today. Let's hear from Rajiv.
Promoted him now, Ash.
Excellent. So Rajiv is joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, sir. How are you today? And we'll just make sure you're off mute, sir.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Ash. Good evening. I'm very well here.
Excellent, Rajiv. Rajiv, just so the audience knows, tell
Can
us.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Tell us, just so the audience knows, where are you calling from, sir?
I'm calling from Mumbai, India. But my startup is basically based out of Singapore. But
Okay. Singapore, Mumbai. All right. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we're probably going to meet people from around the world today, which is always fun. Rajiv, you kind of know the drill. What's going to happen is for those of you that are joining us with video and not on the podcast, I am in a virtual elevator right now. And when I hit the top of the elevator, I will introduce myself. And I would like for you to give me your 1-minute pitch, sir. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Rajiv, my name is Ash Singh. I am an heir, a long lineage of connected to the Prince of Patiala in Punjab, right? And I have a lot of money and I'm looking to invest in startups. Tell me what you're working on. Go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for your time and opportunity to present to you our story. Based on my experience and our studies also, it's found that a lot of ideas that the founders and entrepreneurs have in their brain, 60 to 70% of those ideas don't see the light of the day. That is mainly because due to lack of technical expertise or knowledge, and founders who are not from the technology background struggle either to convert their ideas into an MVP and beyond, or invest a lot of time and don't basically end up anywhere with their whatever idea they had in their mind. Yes. So with that in mind, Metis Pay was formed in 2017 in Singapore. With a vision to build a digital enabling platform which can help founders around the globe to quickly convert their ideas into reality in banking, payments, logistics, and e-commerce domain. With this vision, we started to build our platform. The name of the platform is Pebbles. We intend to partner with startups who have focused to solve pain points and make a difference to the community in their respective industries with their innovative ideas on what they are thinking about would help people and the community. So we started in 2017 building the platform. Pebbles is now 3 years old. We operationalized Pebbles with our first partnership 3 years back. In the last 3 years, we are supporting 4 banks in as many countries in the Middle East Africa region. We have partnered with 9 startups across 3 continents. Banks use our platform to launch pan-bank loyalty programs for their customers primarily. But we have other products which we are in process of launching in India, Africa, and the US in the payment space, e-commerce, and the logistics space. All of this without any spends on marketing and sales, purely through personal contacts and word of mouth publicity by our existing customers and partners, what we have built over the years. Some of the startups that we have worked with are industry first, like a wearable device to just tap and pay on any NFC-enabled EDC device in the world. It's a first of a kind in Asia to be launched in partnership with Visa in the prepaid card instrument space. We launched Techie. It's another startup to manage EDC device deployed at merchant locations. So this is basically very close to my heart because it solves a very big pain points for the banks as well as the third-party processors and acquirers. So since before Techie, an engineer used to take anywhere between 24 hours to 72 hours to reach the merchant location to resolve any issue raised by the merchant with the respective acquirers. Downtime of these devices means loss of business for these merchants. And given the economy and the pandemic, it's very important for these devices basically to be active all the time so the merchant can accept payments and keep the business growing. So we intend to get that 24 to 72 hours timelines down to 3 hours using our AI smart allocation engine that we have built. It's also a first of its kind in the world where we are focusing on Uberizing the complete experience of management of these payment devices.
Got it. Now, Rajiv, in terms of time, because I know we've got a couple of minutes over. What are you looking for? What are your how can I help?
So, sure. So our focus is basically to create and nurture excellence that adds value to the complete ecosystem. We are looking to raise $5 million USD for 10%, so we can expand our team, invest in R&D, which can to add new features and functionalities into our systems, so we can support more startups in multiple geographies, and also not only help these startups with whom we work with only the technology bit, but also infuse some funds to help them accelerate their in their growth trajectory, basically.
Got it. All right, thank you. Let's break down your elevator pitch, Rajiv, right? And in the chat, feel free, guys, to give feedback to Rajiv, because this is kind of where we can help him, guide him, and go through the process. Now, Rajiv, have you raised capital before?
No, not yet.
Currently it's bootstrapped. Awesome. Because what we're going to do is I want to transform your elevator pitch today, if I may. Okay. Yeah. Part of this is just around the psychology of the psychology of the person that you're pitching to. Okay. Remember, you're speaking to, somebody whose time, right? You only usually have a minute to kind of go up the elevator. So the first thing is how do we optimize what you've said into a 1-minute pitch? Because I think your current timing was closer to around 4 minutes, right? So how do we condense that into something? And what I normally tell people is that assume the investor has reasonable intelligence. Okay. Step one is they should know exactly what you're doing in the first 8 seconds. Then you kind of build in the credentials, and through that journey, you need to kind of win them over, right? Because the element of investment is 2 things. One is, does it fit the investment criteria, but also how likable you are, right? And this is something I observed over and over again, right? Because it's a bit of a gut instinct, right? Rajiv, like, this investor is going to want to spend, he's going to have to spend the next 5 to 7 years with you, right? Yeah. To kind of see the value grow in terms of the business itself.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of an overarching view. And then you jump into the ask, right? And when you come to the ask, it needs to come with force. It needs to come with confidence. It needs to come with a directive. You're looking at $5 million US. What is it going to do? How is it going to transform your business, right? And what you want to be able to do is read the body language of the person that you're talking to as well, right? And this is why timing is so important, because after you pass around 90 seconds, the person usually will start to retreat, okay? Remember, humans have the attention span of goldfish now, right? Not very high, okay? And although you love your baby, you love your startup, not everyone else does. That's kind of what I've discovered, right? It's just like, you might have seen this, Rajiv, if you go to like a family, like a wedding or something like that, and you have that one person that just keeps on talking on and on about their kid and how amazing their kid is, right? This happens a lot at Indian functions for some reason. That's why every time what I want you to be able to do is be crisp, tight, understand how you're changing the world, what you need, and move on to the next person, because you got to pitch 20 to 40 investors on this. Okay. And then you have to have the right level of follow-on meetings. So that's kind of an overall from a structural component. But Rajiv, I want to kind of get into the actual mechanics of it, right? Because as part of your storytelling, right, you talked about your Pebbles platform, right? Pebbles is kind of the name of the platform. And what was it? And I want to come back to this because I want to share with you how I understood the story and how we can evolve the story a little bit, because we started off with entrepreneurs, early stage idea people. So I was thinking, okay, he's doing something in kind of like a WordPress kind of world, right? In WordPress, you start and it's a sandbox and you can play around with stuff. And you talked about banking, payments, logistics, that kind of group. And then you started off by saying that you're working with 4 banks. And I'm like, well, those guys are really big. They're not early stage companies. So I wanted to kind of come back to my question. And my first question is around where your product market fit is now, right? Because you've obviously explored this. Where do you think that your product market fit is, right? What is the Pebbles platform? Okay. And who loves it now, Rajiv? That's my question to you. We're having a fun day today, Benji, for a Zoom connection today. Are we having Zoom? Am I okay?
Yeah, very clear. How about us, Ash?
You guys are okay too. But it looks like Atlanta and Mumbai, maybe there's like some weather patterns or stuff like that, We'll wait for Rajiv to come back. Oh, we dropped. Okay. We're having one of those fun days. Let's keep the feedback coming into the chat, right? It's important to drive the right elements around the story, right? And so that was my question to him. But with Rajiv's company, I want to really dig deep and get to that point where we dig into the actual value prop in terms of where he's at right now. So let's see where he goes. I think he might be back now, right? Rajiv's back. Rajiv has returned. Okay. Hi, Rajiv.
Sorry about that. Sorry about
Yeah. So Rajiv, my question to you was around product market fit. Okay. So in your current form, right? Because I want to get into, what are you currently doing? Who is your current customer? And what are you doing really, really well in this very crowded fintech space around payments and logistics? I want to get to that granularity. So can you share with me a little bit about that, please?
Sure. So our focus is basically to create value for our partnerships that we do. The partnerships that we do with the banks is basically to get our engine running.
Sure.
But our primary focus is to work with other startups which have very good idea, like in the payment space, like using AI to basically help ease their processes or internal working, the business processes and the workflows that these guys follow, and probably add value in that kind of a space. So our primary objective is to basically build products that create value, and partnership with the banks is just to keep our engine running, actually, to be honest.
Got it. So you're working with the banks just as a means for them to drive revenue, right? So you're like working in a consultative element, but what your focus is to help startups. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned value. And when I think about fintech and payments, for me, value for a company, I want to go into more specifics, because when we think about value and money, it's about increasing profitability, increasing revenue, lowering cycle time, lowering sales cycle time, factoring, invoice discounting. Tell me a little bit about, Rajiv, where the startups aim to find value through you that they might not be able to find anywhere else?
So generally, so in the payment space, so there are multiple segments that each of the similar kind of an apps that are being launched in India and elsewhere are focusing on a particular area, like on the consumer side or on the merchant side, where they give the merchants discounting or the cash flow part, or on the consumer side with certain cards, and BNPL is the new catchword in the payments fintech space. So what our platform does is basically encapsulates everything. So we have on one side created a network or an ecosystem where we have on the consumer side a payment variable payment device. And on the other side, we have merchants also through Techie, like we have onboarded all of them on the same platform. So what we intend to do is basically create an ecosystem where each of these startups are interlinked to each other, and like they grow, basically grow together, help each other in a way, like like this one startup feeds into the other feeds into this, and basically like an ecosystem that grows together. So that's our primary focus. That's why in these business process, if you say from the consumer to the merchants to the delivery and the logistics part, so we've covered the of the supply chain, and not individually as a individual company, but multiple startups linked together on the same platform. So that's where we are focusing with Pebbles, to be honest.
So Rajiv, like, I want to make sure we hammer this point. Does that make sense? There needs to be a powerful one sentence around what you just said, Rajiv. And that needs to come out very quickly. Because I feel, and again, Rajiv, you guys are very intelligent, okay? But a lot of you guys, like the elevator pitch, right? I want to make sure it properly and accurately represents you. I feel like the world needs to know the amazingness of what you've created. And in the pitch, it didn't come out to me. And I need this to come out, right? This is very important. So I want to come back to this. Let's talk about this for a second. Let's pull it. I want to extract this because you talked about the idea of creating a next generation, ecosystem or sandbox, right, for startups. And what you're doing is you're allowing different companies that are creating plugins, inputs, with the buy now, pay later, right? Merchant related plugins, consumer related plugins for people to interact in the e-commerce space. And what you're saying is people can come in because all these plugins are available. People are now going to be able to create the next generation fintech platforms that start with you. Is that correct?
Yes, to an extent, yes.
Right?
Now,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just like WordPress started off with a simple blogging tool, and they got all their plugins firing, and then people could co-create and make stuff happen. Is that what you're doing, Rajiv, in the e-commerce space? Is that fair to say? Or the fintech space?
Yes, to an extent.
Okay. What am I missing?
To an extent, yes.
What am I missing, Rajiv? What am I missing?
No, you are perfectly on the point what we are trying to build, basically. So we want to build an ecosystem which is self-sufficient and interacts with each other to complement these services that each of the sections of the systems basically brings onto the table.
Got it. And so your pain point is at the moment, when somebody wants to create a little bit more of a complex financial product in the digital space, it's very difficult to do because all the pieces are not communicating. So you bring the sandbox together and you're able to drive that, create that. And then you also mentioned, Rajiv, this element of artificial intelligence. Tell me about that. Tell me about how that plugs into what we just said.
So that plays a very important role when we want to reduce the timelines of, say, everyone like Amazon, all the e-commerce players want to reduce the delivery timeline to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So there are two aspects to that. One is the availability of the resource and get the right kind of resource to basically attend to a particular call or a delivery or whatever request that comes in. So the getting resources on board is one part of it, but getting the right kind of resource to go to a particular call is where the artificial intelligence comes into the picture. So what the platform does is understands what is the request, sees based on experience, the distance, what is the history of that guy basically working on the platform, what kind of requests he has fulfilled in the past. And maintaining EDCs is a very niche kind of thing. No, not all guys can do it. So there has to be some kind of an engineer who knows how the EDC works and stuff. So that's where the artificial intelligence comes into the picture to get the right person to and the time. So how quickly can we get that person to the location to fix the issue? So that's where the complete artificial intelligence component comes into the picture.
And so, Rajiv, your background, by the way, is what? Tell me a little bit about, just so everyone else knows, what's your background?
I'm into technology completely.
Yeah,
so
right. So you're a hacker. You're a pure play hacker, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And so that's important to think about. So when I think about, we were talking about consumer merchant plugins and stuff like that. You've already built this library. You've already built this library of plugins and components, right? Tell me about the plugins that you've created or you've plugged in. You said you've got a list of all these elements. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. So say if someone wants to launch a digital currency, like on the consumer side, someone wants to launch a digital currency like an e-wallet or an e-voucher or loyalty points, or even issue cards like co-branded gift cards. So we can do that through the ecosystem and through our partnerships with the banks. On the process side, like on the business sides, we have tools like a promotion engine. Like in a particular legacy scenario, a bank, if they want to run a particular promotion, so there are multiple teams that come into the picture to go to their IT, develop something, build it into the system, then they have to go to the marketing. There are a lot of ways. So they take around 3 to 7 days to get it done. So with our system, we have built in a promotion engine, which they can create any kind of promotions and campaigns like this. On the merchant side or on the logistics side, we have this AI component which basically matches the request with the correct resources to handle that kind of request. And on the merchant side, we have the ledger management, we have loyalty campaigns management, we have the EDC managements. So all those plugged in into the ecosystem already.
And so would it be fair, Rajiv, for me to say this example, again, part of it is simplification, but you are creating that next generation WordPress environment for the fintech space. Is that correct? That next generation of people that are going to be interacting. And I know, because people understand WordPress, right? And how the plugins work together and they're able to fuse together and people can kick things off, right? And get things going. Is that okay? How do you make money, Rajiv?
We work with banks, as I said, for every program that we launch, we charge them a setup. We have a monthly recurring fee that we charge for using our platform, and a transaction fee. Like every time the point or a transaction happens on our system, we charge a fee to the bank. On the startup side, to use our platform, there are two things. One, we acquire stake into the companies. Also, we have a monthly remuneration that comes for the technical teams and everything that works on the platform.
You're looking for $5 million US?
Yes.
Get this going. All right. Okay. And let me see. Would you like me to pitch your idea back to you, Rajiv?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a great experience.
We're talking about Pebbles, right? We're talking about banking, payment, logistics. We're talking about you're Singapore based, right? Okay. So we're going to pitch this in Singapore, which will be fun. You're looking for $5 million. You're innovating the payment space. Talked a little bit about the merchant space, the consumer space, creating a digital currency, gift cards, all of those components, right? Buy now, pay later plugins, all of those elements together. And you're able to, you know, optimize this, and you've created this next generation ecosystem. Okay. Got it. All right, Rajiv, you get to introduce yourself, and I'm going to, this might sound very different, Rajiv, than the pitch that you just did, but that's okay. That's why we're here. And what I want to do, Rajiv, is I want you to introduce yourself, okay? And yeah, so you introduce yourself, and I'll pitch it back. And Christine, for this pitch, I'm going to need 65 seconds instead of 60 seconds, because I'm just going to, I need 5 extra seconds to qualify myself, just to make it as customizable for Rajiv, okay? We're going to 2x his, hopefully 2x his elevator pitch today, Christine, all right? So Rajiv, you get to kickstart, you get to be a rich investor in Singapore, right? You know, you can introduce yourself, and let's get started. Go ahead. We'll get Rajiv to introduce himself, and we'll get started. Okay. Rajiv, are you ready? Are you ready, Rajiv?
I am back.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, my internet is very flaky today.
That's okay. Don't worry. We'll, you know, when we put this on our podcast, we'll cut these elements out. And but this is live today, so but all good. So Rajiv, I would like you to just introduce yourself, and I will talk about the Pebbles platform. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Hi, I'm a serial investor, and I've invested in companies that have turned unicorns in the past. So I'm looking for the next one.
All right.
I would love to see if you can be the next one. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Well, Rajiv, thank you very much. My name is Ash Singh, and I am the hacker co-founder of the Pebbles platform. And like every unicorn, everything starts in a very small level, right? And that's why we've called our platform Pebbles. As you know, platforms like WordPress have truly innovated how people start big, begin, and develop concepts on the World Wide Web. They provided a very simple platform and got all these plugins to kind of come in together and allowed any entrepreneur to get started, to innovate and create their first web product. What we've done as part of the Pebbles platform is we've developed the next generation fintech sandbox. We've partnered and developed a platform so any person looking to develop a fintech product, whether it's a digital currency, whether it's a gift card platform, a promotional way to reach out to customers, a buy now, pay later platform, we've plugged it all together to allow anyone in the developed world, the undeveloped world, the underbanked world, the developing world, to be able to create a platform that can make some real traction happen. We've been developing this over the last several years. We've bootstrapped it. We have the right relationships with the banks and the right technology piece to become that next generation platform to power the next generation fintech ideas around the world. We're looking for $5 million to take this to the next level, and we believe that this can be the next fintech unicorn built out of Singapore and Southeast Asia. I'd like to chat to you a little bit more over a coffee on how we've built it and what are the elements that we've succeeded on and how you can participate, sir. Thank you. All right, Rajiv, that's my pitch. What do you think?
That completely changed my viewpoint of how to look at my own company.
Does that make sense? Was there elements
yeah,
that
absolutely.
are valuable?
That was excellent.
Right?
Yeah, no, that was completely very excellent, actually.
That's what you're doing. You're a platform play, and you have to come in. The power of the plugins, the low code, and I didn't use some of the terms I wanted to. I didn't want to make it too complicated. So, you know, low code, zero code, connection points, how people, I use the word sandbox, but that's kind of where you're going with this, right?
Absolutely.
And I think the idea of product market fit is also important as well. Okay. So Rajiv, I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully you found value today, and look forward to the next phase in your journey as part of the Hyper Accelerator program. Have a wonderful day, Rajiv. Take care.
Thank you much.
All right, let's continue. Let's chat with the PivotXL team. We have the PivotXL team here. Let's hear from them. Thank you for the feedback. Keep the chat coming. The chat is a little bit quiet today. We should get some of the chat going and feedback too. So let's keep that moving. Thank you very much. Let's hear Mr. Premraj is here. How are you today, sir? Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Chennai, India.
All right, we're going to stick around and we're going to travel to all the major cities that have amazing cricket teams in the IPL. So that's kind of where we're going. We are doing Elevator Pitch Showdown. How it's going to work is I'm going to hit the top of the elevator. I'll introduce myself and you get to present your idea, and we'll get some feedback. And if you'd like, I'm happy to pitch it back, sir. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. Great to meet you. My name is Ash Singh. I am one of the co-owners of the local IPL cricket team. And we've made a lot of money in cricket, and we're now looking to invest in startups. Tell us a little bit about PivotXL and what you're working on, sir. Go ahead.
Sure thing. Actually, 90% of the world's data was actually collected in the last 2 years. Organizations are collecting data at an enormous pace, but the problem is they still cannot convert it into financial metrics that they want, like profits, valuation, cash flow, so on and so forth. And this is where PivotXL comes in. PivotXL is a business financial planning and analysis software. We're starting off with the niche use case of budgeting for mid-tier companies that are primarily passing around Excel files. But this itself is a pretty huge market. We are targeting companies that have at least 100 FTEs. And if you just take our average customer value, this itself becomes a $12.5 billion worldwide market. And most of these companies have, either just using Excel or they've tried a Gen 1 solution and it did not work. We've completed our pilot with a shipping company out of Hawaii that for over 2 years, they've been used our product, and they gave us a great case study review and testimonials that we're using a Gen 1 solution, went with us, and have seen some tremendous improvement in their budgeting process.
Help you. What are you looking for?
To be honest, I'm not really raising money right now, but let's say, my primary interest is in raising money to.
In any way, is there any way I can help you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So my primary interest is in growing my customer base. And so I'm interested in either in capital or strategic partnerships that with venture capitalists or financiers that can help me grow into this FP places.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. So let's get some feedback on this, right? And again, part of this journey, as I've mentioned earlier, is my goal is to give you feedback from that investor or serious customer, right? You talked, there was a couple of acronyms you used, just so everyone else understands. You used the word FTE. Just explain what that acronym means.
Full-time employees.
Okay, got it. Because it means something different in different markets, by the way. So just keep that in mind, when you're when from an investment perspective. So I want to, here's my view, right? And as I was listening, and again, I'm assuming we're meeting for the first time. When we think about Excel has been around forever, okay? And there are some Gen 1 platforms that frankly haven't worked. There are people out there that kind of sell these sophisticated Excel templates, okay? There's all this noise out there. My question to you is, why does it not work? Why has Microsoft not solved this problem already? Or why did the Gen 1 people not solve this problem already, right? And what have you discovered? I wanted to know a little bit about your secret sauce, How have you looked at budgeting? Because when I think about budgeting, and you're an expert at this, but when you look at budgeting, there is a human element and a financial element to it too, right? Especially when you're dealing with budgets around employees and expenses and all of these other elements. And so for me, my question is number one, why has it not worked? Number two, how have you approached it differently? And number three, how have you driven better results with this prototype or this first customer in Hawaii?
Yeah, so if you think about it, there's like 2 or 3 aspects, right? Excel is very good at being a calculation engine, being essentially, as you kind of called it, a low-code environment or a no-code environment for doing a lot of these financial-based analysis and so on and so forth, right? And so you can put calculations, and a calculation simply is a formula in Excel is simply some kind of a code that's written that every finance guy knows.
Yeah.
But Excel is not a great database. Excel is, in fact, not a great database at all. And if you start using Excel as a database, then it becomes a huge problem, right? And that's why we have web applications that are there that have databases behind them and give them certain front end to it. And so what we've done is combine this with the web cloud. We've connected Excel to a cloud environment, database environment that these users can use, and connected the database to external data sources that these users can again tap into. And so that gives them a versatile environment where they can store the data in a structured format in a cloud environment, connected to multiple other data sources to bring in the data, and use Excel using this data to do the necessary calculations and financial planning and so on and so forth. I don't know if that.
So that raises a very interesting point. Is it safe to say, and again, you're the expert on this, is that part of the fundamental problem around succeeding in information and budgeting and financials is the fact that for the last, I would say, Excel actually wasn't the first one, right? I mean, there was Lotus Notes, and there was, we're aging ourselves now, right? So for those of you that are here and there was software before Microsoft Excel by WordPerfect and Lotus, right? So over the last, is it safe to say 30 years, right? Since like the 90s, at least 90s.
97 is when Excel came out, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So even before that, Lotus 123, that's the name of the software. Okay.
Lotus, yeah.
I'm an old guy, everybody. I know everyone thinks that I'm just a 20-year-old, supermodel turned professor, but I'm actually much older. But the thing is what you raise is a very fundamental point, which was missing from your pitch. And I just want to clarify this. The reason why companies have failed is because they start their journey, their foundational journey, and use Excel as a database. And so step one is to make sure that their data is being fed into the right structure, right? It needs to be structured correctly and accessible in a way for them to get real-time information in that. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Right. And so this kind of relates to the problem. It's like you want to fix your budgeting. It's not about uploading your Excel. It's about getting your data into the right foundational elements so it's accessible in the right time. Right. If you want to be able to improve your baking habits, you have to go back in terms of the dough, right? You got to go back to the ingredients and make sure that you've given the dough enough time to ferment or whatever, right? So is that something that you guys do? Like you help that simple process to transition to kind of start off with the right data set? Is that part of what you do?
Yeah, in fact, actually, that's how after our initial pitch, when they say they were doing our first conversation becomes, okay, so this is what you've been having this haphazard process with Excel. How do we structure your data in a way where we can now, use Excel just as a view layer, like use as a front end layer, but the data is all in the cloud, right? So that is our first step, really.
Sure. And how, if you structure your data correctly, how does this impact people's ability to understand and gather information and apply these fancy words like machine learning and AI and predictions and stuff like that? Can you talk to me a bit about that? Because for me, it's about if you structure your data correctly and then you add the PivotXL, I would, as I'm listening to you, it's like, okay, what we do is we structure your data correctly and we structure your data as it should be structured in 2022, not 1982. Okay. Is that fair to say? Right. Mm-hmm. And through that journey, you're going to be able to get your basic budgeting components together, but you're also able to drive better results in terms of predictions, right? Because
Yeah.
when I think about budgeting and predictions in 2022, it should be about smart predictions. It should be about being more accurate in your budget predictions, right? And so that's kind of where I wanted to come out from this. So can you talk to me a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, you make a very good point. So if you kind of take, let's just take one simple thing, profit and loss statement in a financial statement, right? And you say, hey, I want to improve my profits. You improve your profits by increasing your sales or decreasing your costs. And your sales are now driven by a certain set of numbers that are coming from certain set of other attributes or operational attributes, and your costs are coming from a certain set of operational attributes. Each of these things are coming and adding to your P&L statement, right? So let's say you structure your data where you're able to set up all these things correctly, and you say, hey, this is what my past has been for each of these things, and this is how they've added or multiplied into this. Now, let me tweak some of these numbers and change some of these numbers. How is it going to look like for scenario A, for scenario B, for this is this thing, that thing, so on and so forth, right? So once you've essentially kind of built that structure around it, and you inputted your past data, and then you can add in some AI for external factors or things like that. You have n number of scenario plans that you can do. You can predict your future much more accurately. You can see where you are going in your trajectory. And the best thing is every month you're getting feedback on how well you predicted for the previous month, right?
Right.
So that previous month's prediction can be used for the next month, for this month, and your AI can essentially improve, so to say, from that.
I'm thinking out loud, let's just use a real life example around this, right? Because external data and information is important. I feel like when it comes to budgeting, right, there are certain things that we're really good at, humans are good at. There's things that they're not good at. And actually budgeting is not something that the humans are good at, right? They want to be. We want to be, right? We're also not good at losing weight, right? We want to lose weight, but we don't lose weight. We want to go to sleep on time, but because of Netflix, we stay up. But coming back to what you're saying, I feel like, again, when I'm listening to you, there's something that you're trying to say that's magical. That's magical. And it didn't come out yet. And I need it to come out, because when you speak to the universe about this, whether you're raising money or getting capital for marketing or partnerships, but is it, if I'm running in the last 2 years, okay, if I was a transport company, okay, that buys used cars, okay, and uses gas, and all I transport is wood, okay, lumber, okay. I'm using these 3 elements as an example specifically because wood prices, timber prices, went up, right? Used car prices, right? I'm buying used cars, went up, right? And gas prices, obviously, around the world, have gone up, right? The idea of being able to leverage outside variables into my model, right? And help in my prediction, okay? As well as being able to benchmark other companies, right? Yes, I have, how am I doing relative to others, right? Is my cost of acquisition okay? Is my churn rate okay? But the 2 questions I have, number one is that idea of outside influences, have you baked that into the model? Because they're, this person who runs the show, right? He's a 1-person accountant or a 2, or, getting those inputs to dynamically change the budgeting. So you have benchmarks as well as real-time data, right? Gas prices, timber prices, and stuff like that. Is that something that as part of your product roadmap, something you've considered, or something that you've already done already? That's my question.
Not done it, but I mean, it's a great idea. It's
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
absolutely. I think
All right.
limiting
All right.
factor.
So I for the last 2 minutes, I have been your non-equity co-founder hacker. Okay, so you can take that idea, but does that make sense though? Right? Because what I'm trying to do you know, when I listen to startups speak, I take a moment and I try to have, like, obviously I'm listening to you, right? I'm completely in the present with what you're saying, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the person that you're going to be creating that value. And the question that I always ask myself is, you know, obviously, if somebody's pitching me, they've been vetted and there's obviously enough talent, right? So I'm not questioning you. Obviously, you know, you're a master at your craft, but for me, it's about the 10x value that we're creating for that poor guy who's always missing his budget. Do you know what I mean? And so I recognize the new elements. What I was sharing with you is kind of that big picture, right? Where you can build the scenario planning, but what it should also be doing is getting outside data information, plugging it in, and also benchmarking, because at the end of the day, the finance guy, you know, when he's speaking to the owner of the company, right, the CEO, they just want to know that they're doing okay, right? It shouldn't be like, you know, financials shouldn't always be going down, right? You shouldn't correct me if I'm wrong, right? You shouldn't always be cost cutting, right? Because effectiveness and efficient, you know, being effective isn't always efficient, and being efficient isn't always effective, right? So you need to know what the balance is, right? And we all deal with it all the time when the CEO just goes crazy because, you know, but they need to know the benchmark and being able to bring data in from these sources, right? You know, and then life is beautiful. Budgeting suddenly becomes a fun task. No one likes budgeting, right? No one likes forecasting because we're not good at it. That makes sense? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you from a customer standpoint. That sounds a lot more amazing. I'm just thinking from a product as a hacker. I'm just thinking from a product standpoint.
How to do it. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the fun part, right? When you run an organization, you have three people. You have the hacker, the hustler, and the hipster. And the hipster and the hustler, like me in this scenario, are always coming up with new ideas. And then we send it to you and say, hey, just go do it, right? And then you get angry at us because it's easier said than done, right? So obviously it's easier for me to bring up, but do you get where, you know, if it makes sense, right? And the power and being right. See, the thing is budgeting should not just be about profitability. It's about being accurate, right? And that is kind of where the value, I think, comes from, right? When you think about month to month, right? It's about improving accuracy, right? And if I can accurately predict the next day, the next week, the next month, then I can, the next quarter, the next 6 months, then that is, you know, that's weaponry. You know what I mean? We think about business. What is business? Every single morning, businesses wake up and they're actually going for battle. Whether you want to believe it or not, no matter what you're selling, you are fighting against somebody else. And I feel like PivotXL could be that business intelligence tool that it weaponizes you in a way that really accurately allows you to drive the most efficient operations. And it removes the headache because your P&Ls are going to be that much more accurate, right? They're going to be 10% more accurate. And 10% is a big deal, right? You know, if you're 10% more accurate, right? Is that fair to say? Like, am I sensing, because I know I'm building some of your big picture into this conversation, but does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think if we are able to, that's the direction. If you're able to get there, that's when this is just going to like shoot off, right? Like that's when, because it's like no brainer. They'll come in, they'll put in their industry, they'll put in where they're at, they'll put in some initial things, and then they'll get some initial idea on where they're standing, and then they'll add more detail and they'll get more ideas on where they're standing. So on and so forth.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, that's where you accelerate, right? You know, that's, you know, that's our job, right? Our job is to listen, interpret, and then with realistic, like what I'm sharing with you, obviously there's a development timeline and all this stuff for you, but it's not something that's way in left field. I'm not asking you to colonize Mars, right? Getting those data sources in and starting to think about that and driving accuracy, right? You know, improving accuracy is important, right? and how we create that cost advantage. And what that enables people to do is get more confidence in the money they're spending. And if you're more accurate in your P&L, you can spend more money, right? If you can spend more money, you can probably make more money, right? I mean, there's a natural thought process, right? You know, you don't have to have those buffers, and you keep more businesses alive too, right?
Right, absolutely.
How many companies die because they forecasted incorrectly?
That is a very good question. Yeah, I think that's something.
How many businesses die because they forecasted incorrectly?
I mean, I would say a lot of startups right now are dying because they forecasted for
95% of startups die, and most of them die. The number one reason they die is they run out of cash. And if they run out of cash, the number one reason they probably die and they run out of cash is because they forecasted incorrectly. Okay.
Right.
Is that fair to say? I mean, it's logical. It's actually a logical question, right? You just have to work it down, right? And you can probably get the statistics, but we're live right now, and we need to entertain the crowd. And I need to think about an elevator pitch with zero preparation. So I'm going to use that as kind of my starting point, right? And so, you know, because that's your problem statement, right? Your problem statement is this idea of you know, this idea of forecasting, right? This power of forecasting. You get what I'm saying? I know that you, in your pitch, you talked about how you're evolutionizing Excel, okay? But that's actually not the pain that the customer is facing. The customer pain is the forecasting, the accuracy of the forecasting, knowing where they are. That's what they care about, right? And that's where I want to go. I want to go from jobs to be done, like a need, right? To the pain point, okay? And then flipping it over and making them a champion in their organization, right? If you are 100% accurate and you know all that, or I wouldn't say 100%, if you have an accuracy rating and you're 90% accurate versus 50% from before, you are going to be a champion in your organization, right? And that's kind of where I see, as I'm listening to you, this idea of accuracy, right? Because some people are like, okay, why is accuracy, why accuracy? And then we come back to, why do companies die? How many companies die because they forecasted incorrectly? Okay, think about this for a second. Let's think about COVID. Okay, everyone talks about restaurants closing, all these restaurants closing. Why did they close? Why did they close?
They didn't have.
They ran out of money, but why did they run out of money? Because they didn't forecast, right? And so you turning into, and again, this is one way of pitching your idea, but this idea of being an intelligent forecasting tool. And through doing that, you have to adjust the data and you have to live, and Excel's still there. Don't worry. I know you need your Excel program. I get it. You're never going to replace Excel. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like one of those things that you always have to have. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, it's like, a family member that you don't like, but when you get married, you just got to deal with it, right? You know what I mean? It's always there, right? You know what I mean? We all have them, right? For those of us that are married. So the thing is that I want to make sure that comes out. AI powered forecasting and all these elements. I want that to come out, and that is the weapon that you do. And that, when you get some time and you look at this will change the way that you look at the value proposition around what you're doing. Okay, when you take a step back, you'll realize that when you take a step back and you focus on that value creation element, your pricing might change. You might be able to charge more. Okay, you know what I mean? And think about it for a second. Imagine tomorrow, in some time in the future, okay, you're so confident in your AI's ability to predict and help them improve their forecasting that you actually offer your product for free. And you tell them, hey, we just want to get paid based on the accuracy of what we give you. Okay, you know? And think about that. Then you open up the floodgates, right? Everyone's going to want to leverage, and then suddenly your data points are coming in. That is, I mean, that is, you know, for me, that's like that's a billion-dollar fintech company. That's just like, hey, you know, we're so confident, just come on board, you know what I mean? And leverage it and transform yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So would you like me to pitch this idea to you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. But hopefully in the conversation we've had just now, right, there's some elements that we've you know, we've kind of thought about kind of how we're going to position this, right? You started off with, you know, 90% of data is been produced over the last 2 years, right? So lots of data, right? I actually want to come back to the forecasting, right, elements, and how we need to change the dynamics around that. And in 2022, PivotXL is the defined standard, okay, of AI-powered forecasting and how this is going to work, okay? And I know that you weren't looking for funding, but let's talk about what you need. What do you need? Do you want to get access to more customers? Is there a marketing component? Tell me about what you need.
Well, I mean, if you're doing AI-based forecasting, I mean, that kind of changes the whole kind of changes. Now I am looking for funding at that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Now, so part of this, so I'll tell you what I did just now, okay? And I'll do your elevator pitch. But it's very important for you to recognize that I am actually not doing anything, okay? I am just listening to you. And you know, the idea of AI-powered forecasting, you would naturally come to this result. All we did was I went and I said, he's doing this well. If he does this well, what can he become? And if he does that well, what could he become? And what are the main pain points? Okay. And I switched to your problem statement. I didn't do anything. I just listened to you, but challenged you in terms of where I think the core pain is. And we went from, you know, when you think about a customer, there's pain, need, and gain. There's companies that come to us and they just talk about gain, you know, things that are good and nice to have. Okay. Right. It's like painting. It's like the color of the paint on a car. Okay. That's a nice to have. Right. Then you think about like the car itself, right? Point A to point B, that's a need. Okay. But the pain is making sure they show up on time for work and their kids are safe and all these other components. I just did the same thing with you. That's all. This is you. I'm just listening. Okay. So I'm going to pitch this idea. Okay. And what I am going to do is I am going to ask for some capital. Okay. Just to kind of drive these elements. You've already launched this product and you've had success with it. Right. And so we're going to kind of work from there. Okay. What we'll do is you get to introduce yourself. You get to become an investor. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And Christine, I'm going to require 63 seconds on this pitch, okay? Right? Because I have to add in an extra sentence to this, but I want to have the same limitations that I put on you with me, okay? Right? And so once you introduce yourself, Christine, you can start the clock once I start talking, all right? So over to you, sir. You can introduce yourself.
Hi there. Hey, I'm a Singapore-based B2B SaaS investor. And I've invested in some AI startups, and I'm looking for the next big thing that can transform the B2B space.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Premraj, for joining us today. My name is Ash Singh, and I'm part of the PivotXL team. As you know, we've talked and heard about the impact of COVID and how COVID has caused the shutdown of restaurants and so many different establishments around the world. And the reality around this is that almost half of their challenges could have been avoided. And it could have been avoided with better forecasting. You might know this, that over the last 20, 30 years, the way businesses forecast has not changed. It starts with a bad data set in Excel, and people go and they're sharing Excel files back and forth. And because they haven't evolved, it has led to a catastrophic impact in economies around the world. And so PivotXL is actually looking at this a little bit differently. I am a team of hackers, and we're approaching this problem in a different way. we have established a new data set of putting together information and collecting data a little bit differently. We're going to keep Excel where it is. What we're going to do is we're going to help people establish and build the right platforms for them to get information better. We also allow this data to be accessed by information resources. And when we package this all together within our AI framework, we can improve the forecasting ability of an everyday accountant by 50%. And what that means is that suddenly using external information like gas prices and car prices and wood prices and food prices, they are going to be more accurate. And if they're more accurate, they're going to be more competitive. And if they're more competitive, they'll stay alive. And so we want to make an impact and save thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of businesses around the world with our platform and reinvent the way people are using Excel, using budgeting, and using forecasting. We believe this will be the next unicorn, and we're looking for $500,000 of investment to build the next layer of what we're doing and make a real impact. We'd love to chat to you a little bit more about this over a coffee. Okay, that's my pitch.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think we might have to see if I can even set up a follow-up to explain.
That's okay. But sir, I'm going to put you in touch with the CEO. He happens to be also have the same last name. And in fact, he's got the same name as you, sir. So I'm going to put you in touch with him and talk to you a little bit more because he knows more about, do you know what I mean? I'm just the spokesperson for the company. Do you know what I mean? I'm the good looking model spokesperson, but I'll put you in touch with him. So again, I didn't do anything different. I was just listening and I was trying to kind of extract where you're going with this. Okay. You have real global impact with what you're doing, and you need to make this business a success outside of your personal financial gain and personal success. The world needs smarter products like this, right? You've seen it. Everyone has seen it, right? You walk around the world and anywhere and you see boarded up restaurants gone. Okay. You see all these other businesses out of business. Why? Because they stuck to it. Their death started with the fact that they did not evolve. And we live in a world now where pricing goes up and down. What people aren't seeing, like, you know, the gas prices, oil prices, the food prices, it's spiking. And what that requires is something like what you're building, right? And building this broad intelligence. And I think that this is something that needs to be built, and I think that you should build it and maybe sell it to Microsoft, but the accounting firms all need to have this. Sell it to them. Okay, they need to create more value for people because they haven't been doing a good job, right? And I feel like that's where the angle is, right? So that's my view. Hopefully you found value in our time today, sir.
Really, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Exciting times, guys. I know we went a little bit long. But you know, sometimes, you know, we go on this roll and I sense the energy, and I really wanted to make sure that we created that pitch. So look forward to hearing your pitch, your final pitch at the Investor Day at the Hyper Accelerator. And thank you again for joining us, sir. Have a wonderful day. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, next on the cards, let's see here. Who's our next contestant? Who do we have next? Today, is this our last contestant for today? Is this our last contestant mentioned?
Yes, last but not least. Easy.
Last but not least, we have Navi joining us. Mr. Singh, how are you doing today, sir? Just so everyone else knows, where are you calling from?
Buffalo, New York.
From Buffalo, New York. New York. All right. Welcome.
Welcome. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal. Nice to see you today, Navi. We are doing our elevator pitch showdown, okay? And as you know, we're going to simulate what happens in the real world. We're going to get feedback from the audience, and then from there, if you would like, I'm happy to pitch your idea back to you, okay?
Sure.
Right, and give you a sense of how I think I would position your product and share it with the world. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So, hi, Navi. My name is Ash Singh. I am a VC investor interested in the travel and hospitality space. Tell me what you're working on.
So easyparksy.com is an online travel agency, kind of like Expedia or Priceline, but we sell airport parking along with flights, hotels, and car rentals. And we like to be a third-party hotels and sales and marketing company for airport hotels.
And tell me a little bit about how it's different than the existing platforms.
Well, Expedia and Priceline, they don't offer airport parking or park sleep and fly packages. It's where you park your car, spend the night at the hotel, you get the shuttle to the airport, and
Yeah.
you can leave your car for a number of days.
Got it. And what are you looking for, Navi? What are you looking for?
I'm looking to raise some capital for marketing and to ramp up the website and build an app.
Got it. So you're in the early phase of development. How much money do you need?
Well, it'll be nice if I get like $4 or $5 million.
$4 to $5 million. Okay. All right. It's a big ticket investment to start off. Okay. So Navi, thank you for your pitch. I want to go and I want to ask a couple of questions, right? I know that you're in Buffalo, New York, right? And currently I'm in Toronto, and I see these ads for the Buffalo airport, okay, on buses, okay?
Yeah.
And what happens is there are people from Toronto that are going to, that it's much cheaper for them to drive for an hour and a half all the way to Buffalo and take a domestic flight rather than take an international flight from Toronto.
Yeah, that's correct. Because it's flying out of Buffalo is convenient, it's hassle-free, and cheaper.
Yeah. So my question to you, so I have two, maybe three questions around this. How big is that market, right? Because when we look at this process, there happens to be this connection with a big hub in Toronto that can jump over the border and take advantage of this element, right? So there's a Toronto Buffalo connection. How many other situations like this exist in the world, right? Does this exist in other markets? Like, for instance, is it cheaper for you to fly from, go from France, hop over and leverage your platform and take a flight from London? I want to know a little bit more about kind of the market opportunity, right? How big is this? And the second question is how much cheaper would it be, right? If I'm flying, obviously there's a bit of a drive and I have to park my car, so that's a little bit of time and money for me. I wanted to know what is the overall value equation, right? Because an hour and a half of my time might be worth something, it might be worth nothing. Okay, that's number one. But more importantly, I'm parking my car there and I'm leaving my car there. So there's obviously might be a risk, in terms of that, but there's a cost element of it. So my question is like, if I'm doing a trip to Las Vegas or California,
Yeah.
how much cheaper is it? Because I think it comes down to price, right? People are going to do this because they're going to be saving. And my question is how much they're saving, because it can't just be 5%. It can't be 10%, because, so two questions: market size, how many people around the world would be interested and can take advantage of this, and how much as a percentage, right, would they save, if I'm utilizing this on my actual ticket and my whole cost of travel.
Right. Let's say if you're from Toronto and you have a family of 4, you could save about like $600 or $800 a flight ticket.
Okay.
And that's enough, like worth 2-hour drive from like Mississauga to Buffalo and cross over the border. You can spend the night and park your car and leave.
$800 per ticket or $800 total?
Total.
Total.
If it was a family of 4.
Got it.
Because in Canada, well, if you're flying into US, it's considered an international flight.
Yeah.
So you have to pay international fees for it, and that racks up.
Got it. And so what you're saying is it's $200 a person. A typical flight would be like $700. So instead of spending $700, I would be spending $500 per ticket. Is that correct? Right. Now, yeah, go ahead.
American companies like Frontier, they're like, they're budget airlines, and you could save a lot if you fly with them.
Got it. So people can drive these elements and make it work. And so there's definitely a cost savings. So that would be what, 20%, 30% cost savings? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it depends on seasons.
Depends on seasons, right? Now, another thing around it, I want to talk about. So my earlier question was around, besides the Toronto Buffalo corridor, how many other, this is kind of what we call an arbitrage, right? You know what I mean? You can go to another drive there and save a lot more money. Have you thought about any other markets around the world that you can do this? Does this work with Vancouver and
Seattle? Yeah.
Like that?
Like Montreal, Plattsburgh, there's like Winnipeg and North Dakota airports like Grand Fork.
Okay.
There's a lot of transnational people from Canada coming over to US.
What about other markets? Does it work for other markets? Can the Americans go to Mexico and fly cheaper, for instance?
Yeah,
right?
I can do that.
Right? Do you get what I'm saying, Navi? I want to know, like, when I think about your process, right? It's that element of price comparison. When I think about the easy park sleep experience, it should be kind of like, from a user perspective, the cost comparison needs to be there all the time. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So the way I look at it from a user perspective is, there are a lot of entities right now that post travel deals over and over again, right? In Toronto, in Winnipeg, in Vancouver. And so the idea of partnering with them so that you can get the right exposure around this, but it's always about that cost comparison that kind of comes through. And I could visually see myself using something where I'm looking on Kayak or Expedia or all these components, and then there is an option for you to see what your closest American option is, right? And how much cheaper it's going to be, right? Are there any other benefits, right, of traveling via Buffalo? Is it insurance wise? Is it cheaper? Is it easier in that sense? What are the other benefits of doing it?
Well, you got the Grand Toronto area, and you got a lot of people like on the Canadian side, like Niagara Falls, like Catharines, Hamilton.
Yeah.
Just jump on 401. Cross over the border. It's right there, and people prefer flying out of Buffalo than it is from Toronto Airport.
Yeah,
Toronto Airport is way too big. It's like 3 terminals and.
Yeah. So there's a use case perspective around this, and so another question I have for you, Navi, is when you get this done, where does this business go, right? Like once you get this going, you want to raise some money, but what happens next? Where does this company evolve? Because you've added the element of parking, right? And location. But my question to you is, if you get this right, where does this business go? Where does the business go?
I know, like, because of COVID, we live in a border town, and because the US and Canada, there was a travel restriction, because US and Canada closed down their borders, and there was like no leisure and business travels, and the whole economy died.
Yes.
Between the border. And a lot of these hotels are struggling. So, and in the future, like our moonshot is like to be a hotel real estate development company.
Okay. Interesting.
Like if we were to fill up, if we could get like reservations and start filling up hotels, we could kind of control the hotel.
Yeah, I understand. Do you feel like the border town hotels and airports are underserved by the likes of Expedia and some of the other?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's another thing around this, right? Because it's always about looking at a market that might be underserved. Okay. And so my question to you is, do you feel like the border town, third tier airports, right? Because if I think about the United States, and I know you're from Buffalo, so don't take this the wrong way.
Right.
But the Buffalo airport it's not O'Hare, right? It's not the Kennedy airport. It's probably a second or third tier airport. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a third tier.
Right? Yeah. So when I look at what you're doing, part of this is just around creating that first tier environment for the third tier airports and infrastructure around that, right? The parking, the hotels, and all those components. Do you feel that they're underserved at the moment? Is that why you've gotten involved with this?
Yeah. there's underserved, and plus like Expedia and Priceline and all these other companies, they're not educating the people. You know, there's no immigration issues or questions. Like, you know, for me to enter US from Canada, like, do I have to be fully vaccinated? Oh, you know, then there's a question about ArriveCan app. Like, what if I need to re-enter Canada? Like, what is the procedures on that?
You know, it's interesting, Navi, because it also comes down to your consumer. Okay.
Right.
Consumer. Now, like, there are some people, for instance, where Pearson Airport in Toronto is actually a very great user experience because they have the right gold class access and they just kind of go in and there's a process and all those components. Where I see value, Navi, as you were talking, is an element of combining supply and demand. Okay. And so when I think about this, right, I think about third tier airports and the environment around it, the parking, the hotels, and all the other components around the third tier airports, right? Elevating that. And then there's a class of travelers now. Okay. Right. And you know, there's regular travelers, there's budget travelers, and now there's a group called ultra budget. Okay. It's a new type of, right? And within what I'm hearing, as I'm listening to you, you are catering to maybe the ultra budget traveler or maybe the extra ultra budget traveler. Do you get what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's like, I only have $2,000 to spend on vacations a year. Okay. And I could do one trip out of Pearson, or I could do 2 to 3 trips by going to Buffalo and taking an ultra budget carrier out, right? Like Frontier. Is that an ultra budget carrier, right? Do you get what I'm saying? The paradigm shifts, Navi, right? And in your pitch, the way I look at it, it comes down to the customer. And for me, the customer, it's like, okay, I only have this much money, okay? And Navi, when you look at the world today, post-COVID, right? Inflation is going up. Cost of rent is going up, okay? These elements impact budget travelers, okay? It doesn't impact the first class or business class travelers. So there is discretionary budgets are dropping. Does that make sense, Navi?
Yes. Yeah. With the like inflation, the airline tickets went up like 30%.
Yeah, that went up. But what happens is that my cost of living, if I'm a budget traveler or an ultra budget traveler, I might also be renting. Okay. Right. Yeah. I might not have the same job security. Right. And this is where you have to know your market. Okay. And so what happens is when all this happens, there's something called discretionary funding, right? Discretionary budget that you have to fly, to eat at nice restaurants. What happens to that with all this stuff? It shrinks.
It shrinks.
Okay? And so when I think about what you're doing, I actually look at it a little bit differently, Navi, right? When I think about user journey, okay? Because these people, and you could talk about millennials or Gen Z, they are also all about experiences. They want to have experiences, right? They want to go to the restaurants. They want to travel, right? They value that. And so when I think about what you're doing, you can think about it as Easy Park Sleep in Buffalo. What I look at it is a very simple thing. It's around what is your discretionary budget, okay? And how do we find the cheapest way for you to have that experience? Because they don't mind driving 2 hours or even 3 hours, right? I mean, they can come all the way from Kingston, Ontario, if they want to. That extra hour or two is fine, but they get to go to 2 places this year. They get to go to Florida and Las Vegas this year because they're leveraging your platform. Does that make sense, Navi?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, if you're saving like $600 to $800, you could save that money for your second trip.
Or you can package it together, Navi.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Right? It's about rethinking about this, right? Because you might have economies of scale, right? If the person buys 2 flights from you, you might be able to get a better deal from Frontier or from the parking provider or the hotel provider. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I agree with you.
So when I look at this, I always look at it like, Navi, you know what? You are the, you are leading a cause, Okay, Navi, you are leading a cause, right? And you know what your cause is? Your cause is the most cost-efficient way to have as many travel experiences for the ultra budget, consumer, okay, in North America, okay, right? And what that means is through your platform, okay, you look at it and you recognize that it's okay for them to drive a little bit longer, okay? Like for me, I before COVID, I was doing 100 days a year. I was flying. I live 8 minutes from Pearson. I have to, okay, because I need to keep my wife sane when she drops me off, right? I can't, unfortunately, I can't do 100 flights through your platform, okay?
Right.
I might do a couple of them, but not all of them. You need to know who your market is and be in a position where it's very clear what you're doing. But you're not just giving them parking spots. You are actually allowing them to maximize their discretionary budget and have the best value for what they're doing throughout the year. And you give them the opportunity to book in advance, right, Navi? Because booking in advance matters too, right?
Yeah, in booking events matter.
Way in advance, that's part of your formula. But that only happens when the millennial comes to you and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to, I only have this much money left over. I've been watching this TikTok video and I'm going through this quiet quitting process with my boss. And I don't know if I'm going to be there for in the next 3 months, but I only have $2,000 and I don't mind. I want to go to Florida and Las Vegas. And I just want to travel at any time in the next 12 months, right? And you come together with that solution. Does that make sense, Navi?
Yes.
Right? The parking and the frontier access is one thing, but you also want to make sure that you have flexibility to find the cheapest flight, not in the next week, but in the next year, okay? Because that's when the real cost savings happen, right, Navi?
Right.
Right? And so that's kind of what I see you as doing. You are the king of the ultra budget traveler, okay? And you figured out your system and you're going to create an algorithm where people can, whatever they have, we maximize it, okay? We make sure it's the best deal, okay? That's kind of where I see your platform going and how you can evangelize a group of early adopters now, because that's what you want to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
right?
correct.
Right? Does that make sense? Is what I'm just listening to you and I'm trying to.
No, it makes perfect sense. So like, yeah,
Right.
people are looking to save money. Like during recession, like everything is inflating, and people want to have a second trip. Like there's a pent up demand from people who want to go to Florida or
Sure.
Texas or California.
Sure. Right? And you need to be the savior. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
Are you ready to be the savior of these people?
Yeah. Why not? They're gonna have a good time.
Everyone needs a savior, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Right. And when they come to you, they're like, holy cow, right? And the person beside them, right? They're comparing. They're like, oh, for $2,000, I get to go to 2 or 3 places, right? They don't care if they have to drive a little bit longer. Okay. And you know what? If they plan in advance, they can get the right leave and stuff like that. So they might have to travel in February, okay, or November, right? Like my mom, she's retired now, right? And she's got kids around the world. And so she flies whenever it's, she wants to fly in comfort. She can fly whenever she wants. And I think that creating that avenue, right, where you can give it, and it's not just 20% off, Abby. That's the thing. I want you to figure out how it's 50% cheaper. Get what I'm saying? But that's where you have to be able to pre-plan way in advance, correct?
Yeah.
Way, yeah. But that's part of your algorithm and your system, okay? Right? And some of these people are just going to take a bus from Toronto. They're not even going to take a car because they might not have a car. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right? So you can drive all these components and elements and make it work now. Would you like me to pitch your idea back to you, Navi?
Sure. Definitely.
Would this be helpful for you? Are we on the same page? Is this resonating with you?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I definitely appreciate your perspective.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you get that audience, right, the ultra budget travelers, right, And we have another fantastic startup in our cohort at the moment, Donna from Tubular Travel. She sells this travel pillow, which is actually just stuff where you can put your clothing in. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
I talked to her.
yeah, so there's a partnership opportunity there too, right? So that you can fully optimize right down to the transport to the airport, your luggage, all of these components. You guys become the best, most efficient way to travel, right? Down to your luggage as well, right? I think it's beautiful. It's serendipitous that you guys have met through the Hyper Accelerator, but that's where I think the value is, right?
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, I'm trying to go after for the business travelers too. Like, maybe next year, when things recover, we're going to capture the market share much as possible.
Sure. So Navi, this is where you have to benchmark properly, right? So for me, I feel like the ultra budget traveler, okay? It could be the individual, it could be the ultra budget family traveler, right?
Right.
Business is a completely different ball game, right, Navi? Right?
Right.
The other thing to think about is business class travel has not come back after COVID.
Yeah.
Okay? And so what does that mean? It means that business class travel is actually a little bit more affordable at the moment because there's excess capacity, right? The planes were built for a certain number of business class travelers and first class travelers, right?
Yes.
So my suggestion is just get that first group down right, get them to love you, become that savior to them, right? Create that value and go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
All right, let's get started. So Navi, I'm going to pitch you now. You get to become the investor and I will pitch your idea back to you.
Okay, definitely. So my name is Navi. I'm an investor. I'm looking to invest in another startup company. How can I help you?
Excellent. Mr. Kang, it's great to meet you. My name is Ash Singh and I'm part of the Easy Park Sleep team. As you know, travel has really evolved and changed during the pandemic. Things are coming back to a certain norm, but there is now a new normal. We have seen the growth in budget travel and ultra budget travel. We've also recognized that the next generation of millennial travelers, Gen Z travelers, want to travel more and get more experiences, but their discretionary income has dropped due to things like high rent, increase in rent, and inflation. And so I've been looking at this space for quite some time. I've created the Easy Park Sleep platform to allow anyone that is interested to take advantage of lowering their price of travel by between 20 and 50%. And the way we do it is very simple. We take advantage of tier 3 border town airports starting in Buffalo and allow people to find and pre-book as much as a year in advance through our platform, and they save money on their flight, on their transport, on their parking, as well as all the hotel elements. And through this process, we can allow somebody to have 2 vacations instead of 1, or leverage their discretionary spend accordingly. We feel that this is going to be a growing market, and we want to make sure we tap into it. And based on what I've built, where I'm located, and my love to be the savior for this type of market, I feel like we're best positioned to make a dent in this space. We're raising $4 million to launch this product and get it to the market. I'd love to chat to you more about how we are going to be the leader in ultra budget planning and ultra budget travel. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
All right, so Navi, that's kind of how I'm positioning it. It was a little bit different, right? But I wanted to bake in the elements that we just spoke about. And more importantly, it comes down to that price. And I talked about pre-planning and structure and all these other elements. And I think it's great, Navi. Look at your systems. And if we can get that 20, 30, 40, 50%, savings, right? And you structure it right for the individuals, for the families, I think it's wonderful, right? And we love what you're working on because it's important for us to create avenues and opportunities. It's easy that everyone creates apps for the richest 1% of the world, right? And that's been overdone now. Let's try to focus on everyone else, right? So we really like what you're working on, and I look forward to booking my March vacation through your platform. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you for joining us. And Menchi and Christine, I want to thank you guys for and the rest of the production team for today's session. Hopefully everyone found value in the conversations and all the elements that we had today. On behalf of the Hyper Accelerator team, I want to thank you all for joining. Take care, stay safe, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ash.
Bye.
Cheers.